Hello, BookTube. Quite a bit of stuff I want to mention on this segment of Last Week in BookTube, and it tends to build a theme, which I will get to at the end. But first, I wanted to mention a couple of returns to BookTube. A couple of my favorite BookTubers returned after hiatuses. The Cameron from BookMovieGuy came back and is filming from a mouth-watering new library setup. Oh, God. You should go and see it. It's a library out of a dream. And Joe from the Retired Book Nerd came back and made a video. She also has a new and very enticing background. I'm hoping that the two of them stick around forever. In fact, I wouldn't mind daily videos. But then I want daily videos from all of you, don't I? Must be terrible having lives and jobs. Let's see here. There were a few videos that popped up. I imagine these are going to become more common as time goes on, of people I think, especially in the Western Hemisphere, feeling the end of summer and thinking, here are the books I want to read before the year is over. I'm not going to make such a video myself because it's kind of frightening. But it's fun to see, when viewed in that big a perspective, what pops to the top of people's lists. That's always fun. Jesse the Reader did a great video on what his favorite books say about him. What I wouldn't give for all of us to do that. That's absolutely fascinating. Simon Savage on his channel interviewed Eowyn Ivey, the author of a book called The Snow Child that broke her, brought her to prominent notice, but also just recently published a much bigger novel called To the Bright Edge of the World that is amazing. I loved it. And Simon got to talk to her and ask her questions. That was wonderful. Jen Campbell inaugurated a new feature on her channel where she dissects a poem. She tells you what the poem is. She makes a link to it so that you can pause her video, go and look at it, read it, make your own notes, and then come back to her video where she will share her own notes and talk about it. And in this first installment, she picked a poem by Margaret Atwood that I thought was just awful. And actually, that helped me. That made me appreciate this first installment even more because I was able to concentrate on everything else she was doing. I wasn't paying any attention to the crappy poem. God knows what I would have done if she'd have picked Longfellow for the first one. But I can't wait to see, and I'm glad that split in my attention happened because she's so engaging talking about poetry, and I can only imagine what this will be like, as it matures as a feature. I hope she sticks with it. Olive at ABookOlive did an author spotlight on Robert K. Massie, the author of so many of her beloved Russian histories, one of my favorite historians too. Such a great storyteller. God, you just can't go wrong with one of his books, which is rare and always wonderful when you find an author like that. You simply cannot pick a book of his that you won't like. Max at WellDoneBooks he's reading a bit of the Man Booker Longlist, but it's not doing it for him, as he puts it. It was clearly underwhelming him, and that's bad news for the Man Booker Prize, I would say. It's one thing for the Man Booker Longlist to generate a blah response from a dyspeptic old brontosaurus like me, but Max is a true believer, and if he's reading these things, or even synopses of a lot of them, and thinking, then something went wrong in this long list. So who knows? Maybe he'll read one or two later on that will really jump out at him. A couple of them did for me, so it's not unsalvageable. And Unmanaged Mischief did a very good video on rereading. What it is, why we like it. I absolutely love rereading, so I watched it with great attention. I'm always tempted to make a video on rereading myself. And then we get to the theme, and we'll see if you can spot what it is. Story Nut did a wonderful review of a book I didn't like called Ghana Must Go by Taye Selassie, who's a wonderful person to talk to. God, Simon Savage. What I wouldn't give to see him interview her. That maybe he has and I've just missed it, but what fun that would be. She's a wonderful person, a deep thinker, a wonderful person to listen to about writing and reading and multiculturalism in fiction, which is a shibboleth of 2016 that I can't stand. But she actually gives it teeth, makes it something to think about. I didn't like her novel, but I loved Story Nut's review of it. So, Pickleheart, a BookTube channel I've only just recently realized, I've just recently discovered it. She reviewed Ken Opal's Every Hidden Thing, which is a weird and lovely historical novel that's also a romance. It's just, he's another author, in my opinion, even though he writes mostly YA. He's another author that I think can do no wrong. He knows what he's doing. If you pick up a book of his, you know you're going to like it. So I was happy to see that review. Same thing with Spanmade, did a review of Michael Crichton's awful, horrible, wonderful novel, Timeline. It's his time travel novel, which people essentially fax themselves to the Middle Ages. It's just horrible. The dialogue, the characters, the science, most of all, the very thing in Timeline that he was so proud of. He was bewildered when the major book reviewers came out and said, "This is gobbledygook. Doesn't the author know this is nonsense?" He was just bewildered. It was like, I thought I did everything right. But he got a 1,000-word review in the New York Times Book Review, so he can't be complaining too loud. And any review that I see of it on BookTube, I'm automatically going to watch, because even though it's absolutely horrible, or maybe because it's absolutely horrible, I love it. I just love it. I love to reread it. Blake the Book Eater, another BookTube channel that I'm fairly new to, did a review of Christopher Paolini's Eragon. Not quite all of it, because for even his second attempt, he could not finish it because it was so bad. And he goes through in his video very thoroughly and very passionately why it was so bad, what all of the mistakes that it makes were. And at one point in the video he says a line that if I were Christopher Paolini or any bad author and I was watching a video or reading a video of my book and I got to this line, I would feel it like an arrow in the heart. He said, I wanted to like this book. Now see, I don't usually have that problem. Usually when I go into a new book, I want to hate it because it's wasting my time. I want to move on to the next book. And I find that very helpful when it comes to reviewing books, because then I don't have any forward momentum. The author has to do it all. The author has to earn every single paragraph, or I'm going to start to get mad. And I find that is a wonderful quality control for what I read. It makes sure that I don't get carried away with pyrotechnics or the latest hot thing or whatever it is. I think it's a very helpful thing for a reviewer to be angry with books. And I know a couple of reviewers who aren't alive anymore who once thought that way. But he finds no worth in it, and he shouldn't, because it's utterly worthless. And Austin Kay discussed A Clockwork Orange, and it was a great discussion, just really, really good. You should, whether you're new to the book or you've read it a million times, you should go and watch that video. Sue from the Restriction section did a discussion of Shrill by Lindy West, which again I did not like, but I loved her discussion. It just made me think all over again. Just wonderful stuff. Just get in front of a camera and talk about this book. And Hardcover Reviews, a channel I mentioned to you before. He does graphic novels. He does it really well, better than anybody else on BookTube, I think, that I've found. He reviewed the Hellboy Library Edition, Volume 1, the big, gorgeous, deluxe Hellboy thing, which, if those of you don't know comic books, Hellboy is well, you might have seen him from the movies. He's one of the only comic book characters that I love that is not a superhero and that is not published by either Marvel or DC. And the reason I love him is because of his writer and artist and creator, Mike Mignola, who has found in Hellboy the character of a lifetime and has just run with it. And this first volume has some of the very best work that Mike Mignola has done on his signature character, and the review is fantastic. And Alex, a View from the Bar, did a review of a YA novel. He departed temporarily from his kingly endeavors quest to read and review every single Stephen King novel ever written in order to review a YA novel and to talk more generally about YA. And it was really good. It made me it made me wish for more such videos. Now, that I don't mean that as a cheap shot. Of course, I don't want anyone wasting time reading and reviewing Stephen King. But I'm happy to watch Kingly Endeavors. I wasn't saying it spitefully. It just, I'm hoping that in the course of Kingly Endeavors we get more digressions like this, because it really worked. And if you see in that last batch of things I mentioned a common thread, you're not wrong. They're all book reviews. And I was noticing that as I was watching BookTube last week. And then a booktuber named Lectito in Spain, I'll leave the links to all these things down below, made that explicit. She actually made a short video in which she asks me to review books on BookTube. That's about as explicit as you can get. I have been dancing around this subject for, 250 videos. I'm perfectly happy to mention books. I'm perfectly happy to give you a snap impression. This was great. I love this. This was horrible. But actually holding up a book and reviewing it on BookTube, I still wrestle with how to do it. I know how to do it on the written word. I don't know that there's anybody on earth who's more comfortable doing that than I am. But doing it on BookTube, well, I guess the basics are the same. You talk about the plot, then you talk about what works and doesn't work, but it just feels so strange to do it to a camera. So I wanted to wrap this segment of Last Week in BookTube up by asking you, if I were, clearly I am going to review books on BookTube. All these people are doing it and doing a great job on it. And if I've actually been asked to do it, then I will. But what kind of book should I review? Obviously, I shouldn't do an older book. I'm thinking, surely I should. What I'm thinking is I should pick a book that's new that week, something you could see in a bookstore, and instead of praising it or damning it, actually review it. Something that you might want to go out and buy. So let me know one way or another if you'd rather see old stuff, you'd rather see out of print stuff, obscure stuff, famous stuff, classic stuff, or new releases, something that you can go and buy. The one thing that I really don't think I could get comfortable doing is reviewing forthcoming books here, since that's my job everywhere else. And I want to kind of keep them separate, or maybe I don't. Maybe if I tried it, I would like it and find a new way to do it. But anyway, that's a subject to talk about, and also I'll leave the links to all of these things because you should go and see them all. It's still distressing to me that so many of these people have under 100 subscribers. That is not right. These people are great. But I'll let you find that out for yourself. Thank you, BookTube.